Is Drag Race fair? I think a very common discussion piece when it comes to Drag Race is that certain parts and moments are extremely rigged for whatever reason. For example, either production wanted someone to stay over someone else, there was someone else with better storyline, or just there being moments in a season where it's very clear that producers stepped in and was just like, hey, we're not going to eliminate this person, or for whatever reason there's not going to be an elimination. With the season 16 trailer coming out, I was really thinking, is Drag Race fair? And the reason why I say that is because when I watched the Meet the Queens, I immediately had a rough idea of who was going to be the top 4 or 5, and I feel like that is definitely due to the overexposure of this show that I've had. There's just something about seeing certain people's styles or the way that people conduct themselves in certain solo interviews where you're like, okay, I have a feeling that you're doing really well, or you get to the end of the competition because, like, for example, I know that in a lot of other promos, for example, for like the season 10 one, they were filming the promo when the second queen had already left. So I don't think most of the queens knew how well they would do in the competition at that point. But I feel like there's many factors that go into describing whether it's, or the competition itself is fair. So before I go into my main discussion, I'm just going to pinpoint the main 4 queens who I think is going to be the top 4 for this season. So I guess the first question is, what do I mean by is Drag Race fair? And I just mean going into the competition, does every queen really have an equal chance of winning? And the quick answer is no. But let's get to one of the main points, shall I? And so I'll tell you what I mean by this. So before going on the show, most of the queens are given a bit of a checklist of the possible themes that are going to be on the show, or like for the runways. Now, according to many sources, queens are only allowed to bring roughly 5 suitcases worth of stuff with them to the competition, and I believe that is paid for by the production. However, there have been a couple of queens that have had things happen to their luggage, such as, for example, Dusty Ray Bottoms from season 10.
I opened my wig suitcase, and there's a big old note from TSA right on it, and they pulled out every single wig, and then they crammed it all back in the suitcase. So I literally, virtually, like, all of my hair was ruined for that show.
But there have been many times where I want to say alleged reports of people bringing way more. For example,
yeah, and on my season, we were each allowed 6 bins. Like those big bins, because like we all had to be fair for those who had to fly, and that's all they would pay for those people who were flying was 6 bins. So that was why some of us were a little mad because Courtney Act's giant wings did not fit into one of those boxes.
And even someone saying for like All Stars 7, Trinity the Tuck had brought way more than she was supposed to. But I also think there was a lot more leeway with All Stars 7 because it was an all-winner season to begin with. So they wanted people to bring like their best stuff anyways. And so you may like look at what I'm saying here and just be like, I don't understand where this comes into it exactly. And what I'm saying is that suitcase space, or just capacity for how much you're allowed to bring, greatly determines the level of drag that you're allowed to sort of bring with you as well. For example, there's looks that I've seen on this show where I am like, how did they get that in the suitcase? Like, how did that fit in the suitcase? And the biggest example of this is Asia O'Hara's dandelion look from season 10. Some of the things on All Stars 7, but that, like I said before, I feel like a lot of them were just given more room to work with because they were all previous winners. And I believe Monet even said that sometimes they just let them go back home and grab stuff. But this rule also puts into perspective the experience of someone who has been doing it for a long time. For example, someone like Sasha Colby of season 15, that coat that she wore for the finale lip sync, like there's no way that she would have been able to bring that for her on the normal season. So it does put it in perspective a little bit. Next thing I want to go over is age range as well as body types. And when I say this, I'm not saying that if you are a certain age or body type, that doesn't mean that you can't do Drag Race. What I'm saying is there's generally a number of challenges that have happened in the past where people who are in the higher age range or people who are of higher calorie generally have a higher chance of getting injured. And personally, I believe this is a fault of production. I think in general, if you have a challenge that you know is going to be sort of a risk to the contestant, that is more than enough reason to not do it. But as we saw with season 9, that was not the case. The most notable challenge, of course, being that season 9 challenge, the cheerleading challenge, where a number of injuries apparently took place. I believe Peppermint had even said that they had to stop production for about 2-3 days because everyone just had to recover from the preparation of the challenge. And generally, I think it was a challenge that was a good idea. Even when you look at the final finished product of what the challenge was, it not only puts like people who are older and larger at disadvantage. If you are not acrobatic or athletic at all, you immediately just don't really do well in that challenge to begin with. In general, we have had a couple of, incidents where people have like rolled their ankle, or when Eureka tore her ACL. In terms of Eureka, that happened during the cheerleading challenge. It's actually become a point where there is now a meme of the rolled ankle, or just people who've had to be taken out of the competition because of the injuries they've sustained during some challenges. To have a fair competition, you gotta have things that everyone can do. I would say in recent time, we haven't really had a challenge that's necessarily put that toll on people. Like, for example, Cornbread's accident was different because she didn't have to do what she did that got her hurt. So I see that situation as a little bit more different in compared to Madame LaQueer or Charlie Hides or Eureka. It's just a much different ballgame. And also, this is the bit where I put conditions in the little subtitles, is because season 14, during the design challenge, where Willow had said that she had issues with her hands and working with them, only for them to not only not give her any tools to help her, making it so that she had to go to Cornbread for help to like just help her do things. You guys, come on. It's like she told you that she's struggling. Next up, we have storylines and production. And so I guess this one makes a little bit more sense because this elaborates to the greater story of each season. Every season roughly has a story when it comes to the winner or who they want to push towards being the winner of the season. But I would say especially in seasons after 13, no, actually after 12. I think 13 is when hands that production have started to become a little bit like, for the people who've been watching, they were looking at it and they was like, I see you, I see what's going on here. But there have been many times where people look at these episodes and they're like, why is production getting involved in certain things? And so there's been many times during episodes or just parts in a season where there are decisions that are made that don't really make a lot of sense. Some notable ones being Tamisha versus Candy. That lip sync made no sense considering Tamisha shouldn't have been in the bottom for that week, but another queen should have. Candy then being sent home, and then RuPaul saying, actually, no, I don't want to eliminate you yet, despite eliminating you right now. The Alyssa Hunter lip sync, which made no sense against Kerry Colby. And then you had the chocolate bar in season 14, which I don't think it was necessarily rigged. I think it was they were holding out on keeping someone safe for so long that it was like, well, we have to use it now. And then I didn't know if I wanted to make this its own sort of section, but I guess I'm going to say the casting as well. There are times where you see, for example, the promo videos and the promo outfits, and you just look and you go, I think it's going to be a strong cast, or I don't think it's going to be a strong cast. Generally, that really depends on who's on it. For example, season 15 had one of the best promos that we've ever had, not comparing to season 6 because I don't think anything's going to top that. But quite frankly, everyone looked amazing and everyone looked like they could win because the winner was very clear from the jump. And personally, I was not a Sasha fan. I liked Sasha Colby during the season, But honestly, I don't know who I would have given the win to, because I really liked Anitra, but I didn't want Anitra to win. I just didn't feel like it made sense for what she had presented on the show. Mistress would have been a good winner, I guess, but I don't know. It was just hers to win in general. You know, casting may seem like it doesn't play a big role into a season, but as the first gay queen on the show said, you know, filler queen. There are many people that are put on the show because they help fill up the episodes, you know? And then there's just been times where they've just put certain queens in the bottom because everyone else was like, who was going to be in the bottom? They want them to get to the end. And I think notable moments of that is Sugarcane in season 11 from the Magic, no, it's like the Magic Challenge. There was no reason for her to be in the bottom. Did she have the worst look of the night? Debatable, but her performance should have saved her. And then you had other times got Mick in the Disco Challenge. But this doesn't even just have to be people who should have been in the bottom or who are in the bottom. It can also extend to people who should have won. For example, Jan during the Madonna Rusical. Gigi did amazing, but we also have to be honest. Jan really did do the best, but she wanted it so bad and production wanted to see her crack, and boy did she crack. Like, another queen who had a very similar thing as well was Lucy LaDuca of season 15. Just, it's really funny how most of the cast say that she was probably one of the nicest queens there, but storylines and production just wanted to portray her as someone who was very self-centered and wanted the attention to be on her at all times. Then there's also been the issue of lip sync songs as well, where the most notable one and the most popular one is the lip sync in season 5 between Jinx, Monsoon, and Detox, where the song, this was information by Detox, was supposed to be Free Your Mind by En Vogue, but it was changed to be, I think it's Malambo number 5 or something like that, which was a song that Jinx was very well acquainted with. And so, you know, I mean, that's a killer for anyone in the competition when it's like, hey, we're gonna change this to the song that this person really likes. So yeah, I'm sure there's a whole lot more that I haven't even spoken about or haven't remembered because I barely did notes for this video. I also want to make it clear that I am not invalidating any of the queen's wins by saying that production had a hand of certain things during the season. Generally, I would say the winners of the season didn't really come in with the sort of obviousness of like, oh, production favors you. And so it was generally sort of other things to keep other queens around who were things like good TV or who kept certain storylines going. But I would love to hear the opinion of the general audience when it comes to this, because I mean, we're the ones watching. So if you have any things you want to share in the comments, I would love to hear it. I'd love to read it. I liken hot. Are they not the same thing? Whatever. I do both of those when I see a comment just to let them know like, hey, I did see this. Yeah, in case it's not obvious, I'm trying to make up for some of the videos that I was not able to make because I did get work during December. So yeah, if you want to support me on Patreon, support me. If not, don't. If you hate this content, tell me. If you don't, congratulations.